What's up, guys? How you doing? Welcome to the first ever Cuban Exchange 2.0 exclusive edition of Cigar Salute. I'm your host, Dan, and this is a video public service announcement. We are releasing this in conjunction with the written public service announcement in the group today. We are doing a video in conjunction with the written post because it is very important that you guys see the photos that we have collected in our investigation that we've been conducting since the initial PSA a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, I wish I had better news for you guys, but this issue is much more widespread than we initially anticipated and that we had initially hoped. So there's some important takeaways from this feature. And we're catering even to the individuals who don't have the attention span to read a PSA, because some of you guys, even though you have the attention span of a monkey, you still buy a lot of cigars and you spend a lot of money in these groups. So if you can't get down with reading a post, then you need to understand by watching a video. Whatever it takes. Number one, a large amount of these cigars came from another Facebook group, and that group is CSP Support Group, run by Mark Kim and Paul Benedetti. The perpetrator in that group responsible for disseminating a lot of these boxes, his name is Sebastian Morenti. He is from Spain, and he operates with his brother-in-law, Jose Campos Gomez, also of Spain. Gomez supplied the cigars, and Morenti is responsible for peddling the cigars. Unfortunately, several other sellers in the CSP support group purchased cigars from Morenti for resale. Morenti is sitting on a large stockpile of Talisman, Pyramides Extra, Siglo 6, Cohiba Robusto, and other high-end Cohiba. The other takeaway is that this is not limited to strictly Cohiba. We have personally seen examples of Monte Cristo Supremos and H. Upmann Magnum 56 2015 edition Limitada cigars as well. We suspect that there are other high-end Habanos cigars that are being counterfeited this way as well. So do not think because it's not Cohiba that you're safe. We want to make a special note and let you guys know that not only did we contact the admins of CSP about this issue, but they refused to do anything about it. Morenti is still a member of the group, even though he has deleted his sales posts, and they have not made any sort of PSA in their group warning their members of the issue. So if they're not going to do their job, then I guess we're going to have to pick up the slack and warn all of you, because I know that there are members of Cuban Exchange that sell in the CSP group. I ask that you perhaps reconsider doing so, because that group is not a safe environment to operate in. If any of you purchase cigars in the CSP group, I ask that you take a look at the defects, take a look for the defects that we have discovered in these counterfeits, especially if you purchased any of the suspect cigars that have been described in this feature. Please stick around, because we're going to be showcasing all of the examples that our investigation collected. And I want to thank everybody who took part in this investigation. Without you guys, we wouldn't have nearly as much intel as we do. And it's important to understand that I know that the market is changing these days. Okay? The market is changing in a lot of ways. There's a big shortage right now, and it is absolutely a seller's market. Some of you are dusting off boxes out of your personal collections, and there's a lot of people who have never sold before that are starting to sell cigars. And there's also a very large interest these days in vintage cigars. While I have your guys' attention, I'd like to remind you guys about resources like Cuban Cigar website. And I'd also like to remind you guys that if you're going to be throwing down good, hard-earned money on vintage cigars or prestige cigars, it is absolutely 100% good practice and buying hygiene to do all the possible research that you can to prepare yourself. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for information about the purchase that you're about to make. We had individuals that are members of this group involved in a private transaction a few weeks back, and it turned out that some of the boxes purchased were counterfeit. And this was not discovered till after the money and cigars had changed hands already, and it was an ordeal getting the matter resolved. And we're not talking about a few $100s. We're talking about several $1,000s. And unfortunately, with this latest batch of fakes, one of our good dear friends was burned for over $10K because he bought a bunch of these boxes to resell. And I want to say thank you to him because he was extremely, extremely helpful in our investigation. And also, he deserves tremendous respect because the second that he discovered these defects, he immediately refunded the buyer of one of the boxes that he had sold. So stick around. We are going to come right back and we're going to dive right into the first example that was discovered of these high-end fakes. We'll be right back. All right, everybody. How you doing? First up, we got Monte Cristo Supremos from Finest Cuban Cigars. I want to give a special shout out to Chad, one of our new members, because Chad is the one who set this whole thing off, and it was his work and investigations that he brought to our attention that helped us discover how widespread this issue really is. And he brought our attention to the defect in the UV stamp on the warranty seal, which is the common thread linking all of these counterfeits together. So thank you, Chad, and welcome to the team, brother. So let's start with these Monte Cristo Supremos from Finest Cuban Cigars. Right off the bat, let's look at how well done these actually are. We see that the packaging on these cigars is flawless. Everything you would want to see is exactly how it should be. The warranty seal and the DOP are in the correct place on the outer cardboard shell, as they should always be on any cigar that the box comes with an outer shell like this. The seals will always be on the outer cardboard shell. The only thing you would want to see on the actual box is the white DOP banner in the upper right-hand corner. And some cigars don't even have that on the box. Next, we open up the box and we see that all the paperwork that comes with the release is present. There are no missing pamphlets or anything like that. Often limitadas and special edition cigars might come with an extra paper insert. That's all there. And looking at the cigars themselves and the bands, the cigars are supposed to be a Montesco Vitola, and yet here they are as a Montesco Vitola. The bands look absolutely flawless, and they pass the blacklight test. Now, we've been saying for a long time that UV tests aren't any sort of guarantor of authenticity, and even on counterfeit examples of bands, those features can often be there on Monte Cristo and Cohiba. But these bands are likely authentic bands, and this packaging is likely authentic packaging, which is why it so easily passes a standard visual examination. To really catch the flaws in these boxes, you have to dive deeper. And one way we can dive deeper is with the serial number itself. If you understand the Habano serial number system, then you understand that the numbers are sequential and they have been going up as time passes. If you've looked at enough serial numbers and box dates out of your collection, then you can learn to approximate with reasonable accuracy the box date of a box of cigars just from looking at the serial number and not knowing anything else about the cigars whatsoever. So based on what I know, I look at the serial number, which we look at the first 6 digits, 000043. Now, based on what I know, a box with a serial number that starts with those numbers, I would guess to be from either late 2018 or early 2019. So this is where our first red flag comes in, because these cigars have a box date of October 2020. Now, you can occasionally have an older box of cigars with a newer serial number, but you can never have an older serial number on a newer box of cigars, and I will explain why right now. Cuban cigars do not receive their warranty seal and serial number until relatively late in the manufacturing process. By the time a cigar receives its serial number, it is in a central processing warehouse getting ready for export. The cigars do not have warranty seals leaving the factory upon which they were rolled. When cigars leave the factory to head to these central processing warehouses, they get what's called a transit seal, which is the sticker that you can often find sticking out slightly under the warranty seal. So cigars can sometimes sit in this central processing warehouse for an extended period of time before they are given a warranty seal and serial number. And this is how you can have an older box of cigars with a newer serial number. And what you will notice in those scenarios is that they are likely oddball cigars or obscure, under-the-radar cigars, something like Fonseca Delicias, or they are more commonplace cigars in an unpopular format, like cardboard pack 15 packs. If you want to familiarize yourself with the system, then take a look at your inventory and take a look at the serial numbers and the box dates, and you too can start to employ this method. Beyond the serial number, we have the defects that Chad had discovered in the Cuban coat of arms UV stamp. Now, we have analyzed hundreds of boxes of cigars at this point, from all sorts of reputable outfits, from online gray market retailers to La Casa del Habano outlets to Habano specialists, and we have not found those numbers at any of the popular resources that any of us like to use, the reputable ones. So fear not in that regard, and that is a good way to protect yourself, is to stick with the reliable channels, that age-old advice that will always hopefully work, that has always worked. There is one notable exception here that I'll get to in a few minutes. But anyways, so we have these 6 digits in the warranty seal UV stamp, and those are the common thread that we find in all of these counterfeits. And they're also present in the Cohiba Talisman that Chad also purchased from Finest Cuban Cigars. So I have confirmed with someone who owns a regional distribution network, a licensed distribution network for Habanos. They confirmed with me that seal is a counterfeit seal. The coat of arms UV stamp, excuse me. So these are the examples from Finest Cuban Cigars, and these are much better than the previous fakes that I've seen from Finest Cuban Cigars. I'll throw up a few screenshots of those real quick. In the past, Finest Cuban Cigars was using counterfeit bands on counterfeit cigars. And it seems that they have gotten plugged into whatever network it is that is providing these examples with legitimate bands and packaging, but are bogus cigars inside. And we call these upgrade fakes because they have everything they're supposed to have, but they are a dressed up, custom rolled, farm rolled cigar, whatever you want to call it, wearing much higher end clothing. And that's why we call them upgrade fakes. So let's move on to the stuff that was discovered circulating around the groups. We'll be right back. All right, everybody. So this next segment here, I'm not going to spend a crazy amount of time on it because it makes me fucking sick to even have to discuss. But it needs to be said. So these are the cigars that came from Sebastian Morenti and his brother-in-law, Jose Campos Gomez. And I want to remind everybody that these guys operated out of the CSP support group hosted by Mark, Kim, and Paul Benedetti. And I want to remind everybody that not only were these guys warned about the issue, they just straight up didn't give a shit. They have made no efforts to warn their membership of this issue. Morenti is still a member of the group. And the worst part is that not only did Morenti sell a lot of these cigars in the group, he sold them to other sellers in the group who then resold the cigars to other individuals. Now, the couple of guys that we know bought cigars from Morenti and resold them, thankfully, they're stand-up guys, and they refunded their buyers upon learning about the defects in the cigars that they bought and sold. Morenti initially tried to deny any issues with the cigars, and his brother-in-law still continues to deny that there are any issues with the cigars. Sent us an email making fun of us for being nerds, basically, and then told us that the cigars came straight from the El Laguito factory in Cuba, even though the cigars bear Partagas factory stamps on them. It is imperative, if you have purchased any cigars in the CSP group recently, or even not so recently, that you take a blacklight and you check out the warranty seal and the UV stamp visible under blacklight. Check for the presence of these digits because, once again, those digits are the common link between all of these counterfeits. Now, I cannot say definitively where exactly these counterfeits are originating from. My personal guess is Cuba. There is some debate about that. They could be coming from Spain. They could be coming from China. Who fucking knows? But the point is, right now, we know how to identify them. It could be in the future that perhaps the counterfeiters rectify that issue and start using the correct stamp on the warranty seal. So it is absolutely imperative that from here on out, you employ much more secure and careful buying practices. And if a seller will not provide you with the information that you require to feel comfortable with a sale, then walk away from that sale. I have seen way too much recently of people dropping top dollar on either high-end or vintage cigars and not doing the proper research first. We had individuals who are members of Cuban Exchange engaging in a private transaction with each other for thousands of dollars, and 5 minutes on Cuban Cigar website would have saved both of them a major headache. And instead, we narrowly evaded a big snafu because the seller initially refused to refund the buyer. Thankfully, the seller came to his senses and the two worked out a deal. Now, in this case with that Trash Pail Morenti and his Kimosabi brother-in-law, they took one of our dear friends for over $10,000. He was lucky enough to get about $2,000 back, but unfortunately, in negotiations between Morenti and this other individual, they reached an impasse. So, remember the face, remember the name, Sebastian Morenti. And if any of you happen to be in Spain, maybe you should PM me and get his address. Let's take a look at these Cohiba talisman that were sourced from Morenti. Once again, we see the cigars are the correct dimensions. The packaging is correct. The cigars look a little sloppy, but maybe somebody would be too excited to notice this on the first pass. What should be noticed, though, is that without even opening the box and without even turning on a black light to look at the stamp on the warranty seal, we can see that these are counterfeit. And this is the information that I'm talking about that you guys need to arm yourselves with when making high-end transactions or any transaction, really. Look at the box date and look at the factory code. We see a factory code of UAO and a box date of February 2017. And right off the bat, we can call these counterfeit. If you haven't figured it out by now, in February 2017, the Laguito factory was still using the code AMO until July or June of 2017 when it switched to UAO. So UAO was not even a legitimate factory code in February of 2017. And we can close the book on that example right then and there. But going a little further, we can see that the coat of arms seal on the Cuban warranty seal has the 6 digits. In this case, it is 000017. And we have mostly seen 000027 on the majority of the boxes, but occasionally we've seen one or two other different numbers. Moving on, we see that Morenti has offered large amounts of Cohiba Robustos, Siglo 6, Pyramides Extra, in addition to the talisman he offered. The Cohiba Robustos bear a factory code of BRE and a box date of August 2019, and that's a little tougher to catch because those are all legitimate for the time period. We also have the innards of one of these cigars that our buddy who got stuck with some of these cut open. And you can see that these cigars are all long filler. And I would expect nothing less, to be honest. So all of the old tests that people used to like to run, they mean nothing now. And we've known for a while that the majority of the security features on Cuban cigars have been copied. But to see them this well done and this many of them available is alarming, because these used to be limited strictly to what you bought in Cuba. The old adage about glass tops and stuff, it's becoming less and less of the norm, and this is the reality that we find ourselves in today. Looking at the bands are authentic on these counterfeit cigars, and they pass even the microprinting test because they are authentic bands. So understand, if you haven't got it by now, that visual inspection of these cigars and the boxes alone is just not enough. You need today, if these cigars did not come from a verified, authentic source. If somebody is selling them privately, particularly if somebody is selling a quantity of high-end cigars like this, because we know that right now with the cigar shortage being what it is, that pretty much nobody is sitting on 10 boxes of Pyramids Extra or 10 cabinets of Coro or 10 boxes of Talisman. Retailers are jumping up and down screaming right now for more product to sell. And I'm not even seeing 10 boxes of Cohiba coming into LCDHs on their monthly delivery sheets. So for anybody to have 10 boxes of one particular high-end cigar like this, that right there is a red flag today. It's very important to stay up to date if you're going to be in the market for high-end stuff like this, especially the secondary market. So we've covered Morenti and his sins. Let's move on to a couple of the other more alarming discoveries that we made in our investigation. What's up, guys? Welcome back. So before we shut the book on private sellers and some of the cigars circulating, we got to call attention to a cigar that's been capturing a lot of the hearts and minds on social media lately. A lot of people have been flexing with these on the gram, and a lot of photos of these have been showing up in different groups and on Reddit and whatnot. And that is the much anticipated and heavily delayed Cohiba Navidosos. The official word on the Navidosos is that very, very small volumes were officially sent to Tabacalera in Spain and a couple of the other regional distributors. But there are no retail quantities available of these cigars. So outside of a very lucky handful of individuals, there are no legitimate boxes of these cigars for sale in circulation. And it is almost certain that any of the examples that you see floating around in the groups online are counterfeit cigars. Okay, and we have gotten somebody in possession of one of these boxes to analyze the warranty seal with the blacklight, and sure enough, the 6 digits appear in the UV coat of arms on the warranty seal on these Navidosos. And we'll also call attention to the fact that these cigars are in their original packaging, and it has been reported that the reason that the Navidosos have been so delayed in the first place is because the original packaging was supposedly scrapped and they are redesigning the box. Now, we know that there was at least some quantity of the original boxes sent down to Cuba, and there are at least a handful of examples bearing this original box. What I'm guessing happened is that somebody decided that there are these stacks of unused Navidosos boxes, and with conditions in Cuba being what they are right now, it almost seems like anything that's not nailed down is being stolen. So before you guys get tempted to shell out that coin for that new shiny box of Cohibas that hit the block, understand that you would likely be buying counterfeit cigars, almost certainly be buying counterfeit cigars. No matter how good they look, flexing on the gram means nothing at the end of the day if it's a pig wearing lipstick. You feel me? I also want to call attention that the same seller who is selling the majority of these counterfeit Navidosos has also landed a large quantity of counterfeit Reservas and Grand Reservas. And same thing, more pigs wearing lipstick. So be very, very wary of where you purchase high-end cigars like Reservas and Grand Reservas. The secondary market is getting loaded with high-end counterfeits. So let's move on to our final two examples that we have of cigars that our investigation uncovered. And unfortunately, these do not come from private sellers. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. So here we have an example that actually came from a brick and mortar shop in Canada called Casablanca Tobacconist that is located in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Now, this shop has apparently been known to deal in counterfeits prior to this, so I am not surprised to see that they were in possession of a box of Cohiba Behike 54, and a look at the warranty seal yielded this photo with the 6 digits present on the Cuban coat of arms stamp on the warranty seal. I'd also like to make note of the serial number here, in particular, the font in which the number is printed. On a good number of counterfeits that we see, not necessarily in all of these examples, but on many examples, particularly an individual that you may have heard about in another Facebook group that was exposed last year by the name of James Lopez. A lot of his counterfeit cigars had serial numbers with this exact font. In fact, we definitively tied a counterfeit box of Behike to Mr. Lopez, and it used this exact type of font. And the serial number was almost identical to this one. I don't have any photos of the warranty seal from any of the boxes that James Lopez sold, but if any of you have boxes that you purchased from James Lopez sitting in your humidors, I highly advise that you take a look at the warranty seal with a blacklight. We would appreciate if you happen to do that, if you could send myself or any of the other admins photos of your findings. So I'm not sure how exactly this box made its way into this shop. It's likely that somebody brought them directly back from Cuba and either sold them to the owner, or the owner himself picked them up in Cuba and brought them back to his shop in Canada to sell, because we don't see any Havana House holograms that would be present with any cigars that were imported into Canada through official channels. They would have that Havana House hologram on them. We have one more example of counterfeit cigars that came from a brick and mortar shop, and this one's not in Canada, and perhaps the most alarming example out of all of these, because this is supposed to be the safe haven where one can go and purchase any cigar without fear of any bullshit. But we forget that Cuba is in a state of turmoil currently, and people are having to scrape by and eke out a living any way possible. So a gentleman purchased 2 boxes of Cohiba Behike from a La Casa del Habano in Havana, Cuba. And let's take a look at these cigars. Okay, we have 2 boxes here with the same box date. And unfortunately, one of these 2 boxes is counterfeit. We see on the legitimate box, we see a serial number that starts with 000047 with a box date of March 2020. Now, that fits pretty much exactly where we would want to see a serial number in correspondence with that particular box date. And an analysis of the warranty seal under a blacklight shows that the coat of arms stamp does not have the 6 digits present that we definitely don't want to see. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the other box that was purchased at the same time. We see a serial number that starts with 000042 on this box, and it has the same exact box date as the other box of Bahike. For there to be such a dramatic difference here, remember what I said earlier about older numbers on newer boxes of cigars. It never happens in a legitimate circumstance. Analysis of the warranty seal shows the 6 digits present on the coat of arms UV stamp on the warranty seal. What likely happened in this scenario was that one of the workers at the LCDH probably brought this box in from the outside to sell under the table. The gentleman who purchased these boxes goes to Cuba several times a year and is likely going to bring this box back with him on his next trip. And hopefully the owner, it's Cuba, so hopefully the manager, will honor a return of this box, and hopefully it will be made right. But it just goes to show that even in a La Casa del Habano situation, depending on the country that La Casa del Habano is in, we've heard stories about people getting fakes from LCDHs in places like Cuba and Mexico. So you really want to be cognizant of where you're purchasing these high-end cigars from. We'll be right back with our conclusion. Welcome back, everybody. So I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch this feature. And although the news may have been a little depressing to see so many counterfeit cigars circulating out in the secondary market especially, as long as you practice good buying hygiene, keep your head on a swivel, do your due diligence prior to making purchases, and exhibit a little bit of patience, you'll be fine. It's just important to have that patience, apply a little bit of common sense, and to understand that if something seems too good to be true, it likely is. I know it's a rough situation out there right now with the market being what it is, and we are seeing a good portion of Habano's catalog right now out of stock, and it'll be like that for some time. It's said that it's going to get worse before it gets better, but it will get better eventually. I'd like to say that I believe truly that we have the absolute best Cuban cigar group on Facebook. And I want to thank my fellow admins, Mike and Anthony, for their tireless efforts into helping make that a reality. I'd like to thank all of the members of the group for truly exhibiting the BOTL mantra, and not just saying that and talking it, but actually practicing it. Tell your friends about this issue. Show them photos, show them whatever you need to show them, but make them understand that we can't just rely on the old visual checks that people have historically done to verify a box of cigars. I'm sure at some point in the future, the counterfeiters will correct their mistakes, and we will be prepared for that. And the age-old advice that people always talk about, trust your source, that still applies today. But we're just going to have to be a little more careful going forward. So, with that, I say stay well, smoke well, and I'll talk to you guys soon. You guys are always free to reach out to myself or the other admins And if you enjoyed this video, I do kindly ask that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Instagram, cigar_salute. You could always reach out to me via DM on Instagram. You could reach out to me here on PM. And you could reach out to me via email, cigarsalute@gmail.com. So I'll have a new video up soon. I say that often, but this time I actually mean it. I had taken a break from doing videos for a little while, but now I have come out of my hiatus, and I'm back, motherfuckers. So stay well, my friends. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.